Well, good morning, everybody. How are we doing? This is Jeremiah, and we are having a very, very special webinar. This is a very unique one. It's not often we have a special webinar like this. Years ago, we started on doing some sort of connection to Revit. Because obviously we've been just an AutoCAD plugin for 20 plus years. But Revit has a lot of potential and a lot of importance, and so we started dabbling in it. And then about 3 or 4 years ago, we decided to pour some more effort into it to make it essentially its own standalone product, to be able to do a complete landscape design in Revit without even having AutoCAD installed. And as with a lot of software development, delays and feature creep and all kinds of issues and things. But it's been a lot of fun, as any new development is. It's always quite exciting, and I've just really enjoyed, we've brought on, additional programming talent, and it's really exciting doing a project of that complexity and freshness and everything. And so anyway, we're going to be showing this off. It is out of beta. It is now, officially a real product, but we are, of course, still massively developing it at an incredible clip. So there is going to be an incredible number of features added over these next few years to get it, up to par with where our AutoCAD plugin is after 25 years of development. So, it just takes time, but it is quite capable as it is. It is a little 1.0 release, and that's what we're going to be showing you. So I hope you like this. I have a couple extremely quick housekeeping items. I want to get us going. We are, of course, recording this. You're definitely going to want to show this off to the rest of your team members. And lastly, there will probably be a whole slew of questions. Well, there's a Q&A button at the bottom of your screen. I recommend you click it right now. So it'll be really easy for you to type in any questions. But note that'll let you also see the answers that we type to other people's questions. So it makes a great little companion. You're here with us live in person watching this. And that said, I'm going to kick this over to Amanda. Let's start this party.
That sounds fantastic. Hello, everybody. Well, it's an exciting day for me today because I get to show off some of the hard work we've been doing for the last few years. So, I'm Amanda Marin. I'm a landscape architect here at LandFX, and it's really great to be able to talk to you all. I know I got to meet quite a few of you in person at the ASLA Expo last fall, and we've been hard at work since even just then, working on all of the ideas some of you gave us and scheduling them out. But there's also a lot of new faces joining us today, so I want to say welcome to you too. Here's what I'm going to cover, and I'm going to try to leave plenty of time for plenty of questions at the end. So remember again to bring that Q&A box up right now and just start typing out what your greatest desires are with Revit and your questions. Hopefully we cover everything, but of course there's always something I might forget. So let's start with who we are. What is LandFX and what is Planting FX? So LandFX is the company name and Planting FX is the license type. So every tool that LandFX has ever made has been requested by a landscape architect, a landscape designer, or an irrigation designer. And it's all started with Jer's dad, a landscape architect out here in California. And we've grown due to that fundamental goal of making things easier for designers and actually listening to what they want. And I should know, I'm a user too. And some of my ideas became tools before I even started working here. So the really great thing about a Planting FX license is that it's going to follow you where you want to go. We weren't in Revit 4 years ago, and here we are because enough users told us they needed us here. So a single Planting FX license will carry you through the same tools in Revit, AutoCAD, SketchUp, Rhino, and whatever comes next if something comes after this. I saw a lot of cool things at the Autodesk University that are coming down the pipeline. Very excited. But we even try and make them all look the same across each platform as much as we can. And you'll see that today if you're familiar with our AutoCAD plugin, which really cuts down on the learning curve. If you already have some experience with Planting FX in one platform, it will transfer to another. So it's always a great time to jump in and start learning it. For Revit in particular, Planting FX is not just dropping the learning curve in Revit if you've already used Planting FX in AutoCAD though, but also if you're new to both Revit and Planting FX, it's going to drop down that learning curve for Revit in general if you're trying to use it for planting plans. And then on top of that, even if you've been using Revit for years and never used Planting FX ever, Planting FX is going to cut down on the manual tedious tasks and take them out of your workflow and really help you to start to get your ideas documented properly in Revit and much faster. You're going to gain more time to either bank that money or spend that time analyzing your design, putting it towards a better design overall. And you can see the list here that I've created for what Planting FX includes in Revit for planting tools. And I'll show all of these points live in the live demo portion of today's presentation. But these are the bullet points if you're trying to convince somebody else on your team, putting it right here for you. And that's the ribbon that you're going to get over in Revit that we add into it. So you can see all of the tools you're going to get. So what makes, first, let's go through some of those tools, just some quick visuals. You can see a landscape plan here. We're going to see this again live, and the schedule, of course, it creates those. We've even got a cool color render tool up here that you can just turn on color with transparent color fills inside the families. All the families are ready made for you, but you can also customize if you want to. You can add in your own families. We can talk about that. And then, of course, Revit is a 3D platform. So all of these, that's the big thing about Revit. Hopefully all of you are a little bit familiar with Revit to know that when you place one of these families, which is the Revit word for blocks, it places it, and when you switch between 3D and 2D view, it changes what that plant looks like in each of those views. So of course we've got the nice small families in the billboard trees here. And we decided we've vastly improved the symbol look beyond what Revit provides out of the box, but we did like that the Revit out of the box had those RPC realistic renderings, so we made sure that those were still included in our default families and we utilized those. So you can get this kind of look out of the box in Revit without a rendering engine. But then, of course, you can always start adding a rendering engine on top of it. We've made strides to try and make sure our symbols, our families are Enscape ready. So you turn on Enscape and it'll just choose something, but then of course you can customize that family. And we're looking at a lot of the other rendering engines to make sure that they're ready for that as well. So what makes Planting FX so great? Well, I would say one of the biggest things that people keep telling us, and I loved it too when I was a user, is the support. And it's really what makes LandFX really special as a company, is almost second to none support. And I was trying to pick and choose for this webinar who to include here, whose pictures, but really the Revit plugin is a whole team effort, and we're all here to help make this successful for you. Obviously, you got Jared and I, we've got Kurt over in here, who's been our other developer helping us move Revit forward at this furious pace. And I'll be talking about Molly. And so with us, if you've got an issue, the phone number and email aren't hidden. It's right here on this page. You can call us. You are going to talk to somebody, maybe not Bella. She's super busy, but you will get one of us, and we will help you with whatever problem you're having. And we try and update our documentation all the time. Anytime somebody comes in with a question of something that's not covered in our documentation already, we put it off right over to Jason over here, and he adds it into our website documentation to make sure it's clear to understand for the next person. So hopefully you find your issue solved in however a lot of different ways. But if you're a LandFX user and you've already got you probably have some experience with this. If you're not a LandFX user, I have some quotes from people who have said some wonderful things about us, and we really can't thank you enough. Honestly, if you're a LandFX user and you've got an anecdote that you'd like to add about your experience, please add it to the chat if you want to. Seriously, when people send in things like this, it always brightens our day every time we see it, and we share it around the office, and it totally motivates us every time we hear it. And because I couldn't just limit myself to one page based on some of them, I added a second page of some of these quotes. Really, the support is second to none, and you are going to have a wonderful time as you start with LandFX. So that's the number one thing of what makes this also great. But of course, there's all the tools. And once you decide, okay, I'm going to make this leap, I'm going to try out this, I'm going to do a trial, you are going to obviously want to start looking at making sure that your setup is going to be able to run Planting FX on Revit. So let's talk about that. So for the system requirements, of course, you're going to need Revit installed, and it can't be LT. And it has to be, right now we're supporting, the plugin works for 2019 all the way to the current version. And right now that's 2023. And of course, once 2024 comes out, we're going to make sure we're going to test it, and then we'll put out 2024. So the latest 3 versions are going to receive updates. Right now, all versions through 2019 have all the updates. So as of today, everything that you see today is 2019 to current, but we're going to start focusing our efforts on just the latest 3 versions. But I know that it's kind of a problem of upgrading models, so we're still going to allow support down to 2019 for probably a while. We're going to be talking about that one. That one's fluid. And then, of course, for Planting FX, installing that, it's pretty easy. If you can run Revit, it can run Planting FX. Our models are very, very small. We made our default families are very small file sizes, so as not to bog down a computer if you place hundreds of shrubs. That's what we've aimed for. Now, if you have a multi-user office setup, like a bunch of users all in the same office, I do recommend, we'll talk about the library folder where those families live. You'll probably want to put that on a shared mapped letter drive, either a local network or a local server, or a shared online folder. Both will work. And just make sure that that has write access for all users. And then in terms of the type of license that you'll need one Planting FX license per simultaneous user. So like you see here, you got 10 users, you only have 5 using the Planting FX tools at once, you need 5 licenses. It's that simple. Just buy what you need. And then if you are an existing LandFX user and you have Irrigation FX licenses, those are the ones with the irrigation tools, but they do include the planting tools as well in them. They will run on this Revit Planting FX plugin, but just keep in mind there's no irrigation tools over there. So you will be pulling an irrigation license for that. And then finally, if you are running Planting FX in Revit and AutoCAD on the same computer at the same time, you just need 1 license. So keep that in mind when you're figuring out your license counts. It is smart that way. And then there's, of course, the big question always, what's the cost of this? The subscription is $575 per year per seat. And that is paying for everything that we talked about. So that technical support, phone, email, putting in a ticket, you will get your answer. We always have that great documentation getting updated. We are growing the family library, especially this year, where we've got plans on growing it. We put out frequent updates. Those already using the plugin probably notice some updates going out this week with some great new tools that we're going to be showcasing and some improvements to old tools as well. And of course, like anytime we find a bug, we're going to push it in one of these frequent updates, the fix for it. And then we've got a growing plant database. I told you before it has over 47,000 plants, and what this is all paying for is also making sure that that database continues to grow and gets verified by our horticulturalist Molly. And then we have live webinars like this, all the recordings and the shorter power tip videos. So all of that is what you're getting. And then, one thing though with this that I did want to mention, for the CAD plugin, for the cost of this license, I told people that you'd save the cost of the license easily on your first project with the CAD plugin. Here in Revit, honestly, placing your first tree is going to save you enough time to cover the cost of one of those licenses. It's automating that much, especially if you're just starting out in Revit. It's a huge hurdle to get that first tree down, be able to label it, be able to schedule it. I've gotten checked and validated on that first AutoCAD claim, and I'm happy to be challenged on this Revit claim too, if you want to do that. So the installer, you've decided you're going to do this. Okay, we've got everything we need. You filled out, well, first you have to decide, are you doing a trial or are you existing users? So for trials, you're going to fill in the trial form. There's the website link where you can go and fill that out right now if you want to. I don't mind. Check the box that you're interested in Revit and any other platforms, like if you have AutoCAD or Civil or even SketchUp. Maybe I've seen a few offices that are like, we use everything, and it depends on the project, which software we actually use. And then in the notes, I would ask that you specify which version years of Revit you're using and that you watch this webinar. That's really going to help out our sales team get you exactly what you need as quickly as possible. And then for existing users, actually, the downloads, the installation page for our Revit plugin now, as of today, has the download link. So you can actually get it from there now. Before you had to submit a ticket and I would send you out the link. But now it's there, so you're ready to go. So you're going to download to your downloads folder. You're going to run the exe file from there. It will install on all versions of Revit on that computer. So I have 2019 through 2023 installed on a computer. It will install the plugin on all of those versions. Then you're going to open up Revit and there's going to be a message asking for permissions and you're going to say always allow. Then you're going to open up the Planting FX ribbon that I showed you before. You're going to go to general preferences. Here's the drop down. Here's what it looks like. Here's general preferences. It's going to open up this window. And you're going to go ahead over to the library section and you're going to click browse and you're going to figure out a library folder. It doesn't really matter where it goes. You can see here, I already have LandFX installed, so I happen to have a LandFX folder on my C drive. I just made a Revit folder in there. But the very important thing is you need to have these separate version years here set up because as you probably know, Revit is not backwards compatible. And if you try and load a family from a previous version year of Revit, it pops up that annoying upgrading model. And we have a lot of families. So it goes upgrade model, upgrade model, upgrade model. So we've created libraries for each and every supported version year of Revit so that you can just download to that one. So what you're going to do is if you have multiple versions installed on your computer, you're going to follow these steps for each one. You're going to open up 2019 Revit, you're going to click always allow, you're going to go to general preferences and you're going to set it up to a 2019 library folder. And you're going to repeat that for 2020, 21, 23, all of it. And then once you do that, you click OK down here and you're good to go. You will want to probably eventually work out if you're going to use either the imperial preference set or the metric preference set. But if you're already a LandFX user, this preference set will actually carry over from what you already have going on in AutoCAD. So that's pretty cool. You will probably come across this step, and I will say that based on the beta testers and installing, this is the step that's most frequently missed. So I wanted to have a whole slide on it. You need to set a shared parameter folder. LandFX is automating a lot of the parameters onto the families that we're placing. So you are going to need to load this whenever you're using the Planting FX tools in Revit, just so that that smart parameter information can happen. Okay, so we're at the point in time, we're right on track where we are going to jump into CAD and get going. Let's do this. Let's do this. Okay, escape, go over here. And I'm still I got it, still got to get used to this. I said we're going to jump over to CAD. Of course, we're going to jump over to Revit. That's right. I got to get used to this. Okay.
It is. Yeah, all the terminology it kills me. I like the terminology of a block. I hate saying a family, but it's yeah, it's what it is.
Yep. Yep. I will get there. Don't worry, guys. I'm here with you. We're all learning together, right? So I have this already started, but imagine that you just have the site going on right now. You don't have any plants yet. So you go up here, you do your thing in general preferences, right? And then you're going to come over here to projects, and you're going to click the projects button. And if you're new to Planting FX, then this list is going to be empty. And if you are not new to Planting FX, you've used it in another platform, this list is going to have all of the cloud data projects that you have already set up. So you can actually, if you're starting to move a project over from CAD into Revit, you're going to see it here, and you can keep going with the same planting list. But let's pretend we're a new user, totally new user. Let's make a new project. Here's how we do that. So I could go new. It's going to ask me for a project number. I'm just going to do a test project. So I'm going to go 000333 test. There we go. And we're going to say test. Great. This is my practice project. But of course, you would want to, if you're doing this on a real project, this project number matters. It connects to the project information in the Revit model for the project number. So if you need to coordinate with that, you might need to coordinate your LandFX project numbers to be the same as you're already doing on your Revit project numbers, if you're using that as a company so far. So I'm going to say OK. Great. And that's going to add it to the list. 003 test. There it is. I got a lot of tests going on, and I'm going to say open. There we go, that opens, and now I can click on Plant Manager. I can drop this down, click on Plant Manager, or I can just click on the button itself up here. And as we go along, one thing I wanted to point out, a general learning thing that you might have remembered that we did in CAD, we're also doing here in Revit. If you hover over any tool for long enough, it will pop down with more information about that tool. And what you can do is you can also tap F1, and that's going to open up our documentation page for this. So go ahead and try that out if you need to. And so I'm just going to click the Plant Manager now, though. And if you click this and that project list comes up, it means you have not set a project to it, or there's something going on with the project number in the Revit model that's not coordinating with this project list. You need to fix that. So this is what the Plant Manager looks like on a brand new project. It is completely blank. So we got to add some trees and some shrubs and some ground covers. So trees and shrubs are both families, just pulling from different family symbol libraries. And then ground covers is going to be on floors, and we have hatches all set up for those. So I'm going to go to New for trees, and we're going to add a new plant. So as you can see in here, this is expandable, but we got 47,496, and you're going to see that this number goes up when you use it pretty rapidly. It was at 46,000, I want to say, a few months ago. So Molly is very busy. But we have a lot of ways to find plants. So the first way that we can do it is we can go ahead and use filters. So I can click on filters, and all of the plants in our database are connected to data tags. So I can start filtering my list by sun exposure, full sun, right? Now we're down to 5,000 plants, and I can do it based on plant traits like evergreen. And now we're down to 2,200 plants, and I can apply those filters, and it's going to limit the species in this, or the genus, and then the species in these lists for me to look through. So there's lots of filters in there that you can play with, and when you want to clear them out, I can clear out evergreen, and I can clear out full sun, and I'm back to my 47,000. The other thing I can do is, of course, I can just search. I can search by botanical name or common name. So now you guys know whenever I do these, I love to find new plants. So we're going to go with eucalyptus, and I don't even need to spell out the whole thing. I'm just going to search for that, and it's going to narrow down on its best guess on what it thinks I mean. Usually it's right. And then I can find from all these species. Have a look, gander at all those eucalyptus species. It's this way for everything. Basically, we've been running for 25 years, and every time somebody doesn't find their plant in here, they can go ahead and click new plant and add it in, and it pings us, and then we verify it and we add it into the database for everybody else. So you get it right away, even if you don't see it here. But we also find out, and we make sure that, hey, that's a plant that people are designing with. We got to add it into the database. So I'm going to go with, where is it? Tegulta rainbow eucalyptus. This one is beautiful. I saw the photos of it. But yeah, you can look at the data on this plant too, based on what we have on it. You can add to this data, you can add to the plant. That also helps with our database, as this feature is actually fairly new, so it's growing. So we close that one, and we can grab that one and add it to the project. So of course there's no varieties in here. It's a fairly rare plant, but if there's always new varieties of everything on the market every year. So you can always, if you don't see your variety in here, you can click new plant and you can just add that variety right in here. And I'm going to call this the Amanda rainbow eucalyptus, and I'm going to say okay. That's going to add it to the list. Again, it's going to ping Molly, and she's going to look at this one and say, oh, another junk plant that Amanda added during the presentation. Or if it's yours, she's going to validate it, make sure it's a real plant, actually verify it against trusted sources to make sure the data is correct on it, and add it in. And you can actually add this into your project right now as well. You can't. This is only for me. You won't see this plant in your list. Okay, but let's say I'm done here. And now it is over here in my plant manager under trees. So if you want to add shrubs, you need to go into the shrub section, click new, and add shrubs, and go into the grounds cover section, click new, and add ground covers. And you can switch them between sections when you edit a plant as well. So let's edit a plant. We got this one, we got our tree. I'm going to go ahead and click edit. There we go. Here's everything by default, but all of this is editable, including the plant code. So you can crank this down to 3 letters or 2 letters or whatever you want in here. Here's how you can change the group over to something more with, I've been playing around a lot, but you can change this over to shrubs or whatever if you need to. You can add in a cost, like a supply and place cost. You can add a container size. So I'm going to go with, actually, I think it is pulling from something I don't want it to. So I'm going to say okay really quick. And I need to go up here and clear out my preferences. So I'm going to go back to office name prefs. There we go. And say OK. That's the one I wanted it to default to. And I'm going to say back to edit. And here we go. Here's my curated list of sizes based on what's local to me. And of course, we have a metric preference that you can start off with. So this list of sizes by default is all metric stuff. But you can go back into there and go to your plant size preferences and curate this list to what you use locally. So maybe I'm doing a 25-gallon, really big pot or a box. We're going to do wire basket. And I can change the symbol width of this. 20 is the default for trees, and I can choose a symbol. So here's our library of tree symbols, and I can toggle between 2D and 3D symbols with this toggle right here. So you can see this is tree conf 01, tree coniferous 01, and if I toggle it, that's still tree coniferous 01. So the 2D symbols are tied to the 3D symbols. Now, if you want to start mixing and matching them, you would probably go into our library folder and make a copy of the family folder and start bringing in whatever line work you want into it to show. But if you're customizing something like that, you do want to start with one of our families and stick with the framework that we've already set up in there in terms of nested families, because it is critical for the plants to scale themselves based on this symbol width here. So the symbol width is going to correspond to how big this symbol is on the plan, and for this 3D symbol, how big the width of this symbol goes. Okay, so that's how that is all set up. So here with the rainbow eucalyptus, it's more of an evergreen, and I can grab something more like, we'll say like this one. And I can see the 2D and 3D symbol right here now. And I can go ahead. Oh, here's another spot where you can put more remarks about the tree. Like I've used this for putting on the plan. Oh, prune this tree up to 6 feet or something like that, if it's along a bike path or something like that, so it doesn't clothesline the cyclists. So I'm going to say OK. And that sets that up over here. And I can grab that and I can place it into this plan. Of course, I have a lot of things going on to here. So that's one way to add in a new plant into here. Now, the other way, if I close this and I'm going to go back to my projects and I'm going to go right on down back to this one that I had set up before. And I'm just going to open up this one and open up the plant manager. And there's all the plants. That rainbow eucalyptus isn't in here, but I added it to that other project. So here's the other really cool thing I can do with Planting FX is I can import a plant from another project. Here we go. Here's that project. I'm importing a tree. That's important. It's showing me all the trees in that project. Add to project, plant imported, done, cancel. And we're going to go over, there it is, and the symbol's already set up, and everything that I set up before in that past project is already filled in. So I don't need to click new and fill in all this information again. I can use what I've done in a past project. I can start setting up template projects as well that are enforcing office standards of the types of plants you're using, the types of symbols that go with it, and the types of sizes and the cost, the general cost. You can start setting all of that up for your office to very quickly populate this list and just be able to grab this and place it down in the project. So here I am, I'm going to start placing down in this project. We can go click, 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 and it's in. I'm hitting escape to get out of the placing command, and I can switch over here to 3D. And we're just going to ramp right over here, and you can see that symbol has placed down in here and popped to the top of the floor already. It'll also pop along topography, but let me show you another placing tool. That's really handy for placing along topography. I'm going to use copy along. So let's go over here to the first thing it needs is a line to copy itself along. So you're going to want to go to annotate and use a detail line. It does work with model lines, but model lines tend to fall behind floors and topography in the site view, whereas annotate detail lines pops above everything. So we're going to create a temporary detail line. So I'm going to grab some curves and we're going to start here and kind of curve it that way. And we're going to curve it that way. I love how Revit just pops like that, right? It's so easy to sometimes place some of these things, a lot easier than CAD. I do really like that about it. So I'm going to hit escape. And now that I have those lines, what I can do is grab my, oh, I'm going to do it from over here. So I do have to place it right now first, and then I'm going to go copy along. I'm going to choose the symbol to copy along. And we're going to go ahead and it's asking me pick a line, arc, or pick a line or arc. It doesn't really work very well with spline at the moment. Spline has some math problems. But this is kind of with all of our tools. So if you're wondering what's kind of going on, what you should do next, have a look down here in this bottom line. It's most likely telling you what to do. So we're going to pick this line and this line and this line. And then we're going to hit escape. And it's going to ask this. We're currently debating on if we get rid of this. So if you find a situation where you don't want the plants to pop to elevation, let us know, because we are actively probably going to rip this out and just have it pop to elevation without asking you. I'm going to say yes, of course, I want it to pop to elevation. I've got some terrain over here, and it has copied those along. But I'm still technically in this command, and I still have some options. If I tap K, we have those hotkeys. So I can do adjust the spacing with A and D on my keyboard, or I can use W to toggle between exact spacing and best fit. I can tap 1 to then specify a distance, and S to just pop it right on back to 100%. 100% spacing based on the width of the symbol is the default. So let's do D, D, D. You can see it starting to kind of increase just a little bit. You can see the current spacing down at the bottom. It did for a little bit there. But if I do W, it's going to toggle. You can see now I have a plant at one end of the line and at the other end of the line. And if I tap W again to go back to exact spacing, it goes, well, I gotta look at that one. Normally it would go back to 1 here, and then it doesn't necessarily have 1 at the end. Actually, no, that's exactly what it did. So this plant isn't at the end anymore with the current spacing. Or I could just say no more funny business and tap 1 and enter the number. I'm in an imperial drawing right now, so it's saying feet. If you're in a metric drawing, it'll say meters. And I can say no more funny business. I want exactly 35. Numlock, there we go. 35. Hello, keyboard. Let me just check to see if my keyboard disconnected on me. No, it didn't. We're going to cancel. You can click in there and specify the spacing in there. My keyboard doesn't want to listen to me. I probably been playing around with installations on this virtual machine a little bit too much. Okay, so we are going to, that's set, and you can actually see if I go over to back to, I got to get used to Revit. I was looking down here for the views. Over to 3D view, you can see all of those plants copied along and popping up to elevation like that. Isn't that cool? Okay. Now these are all showing as billboard plants, of course, which is, we've done that to make them very small file types. We do have it on the roster to fix up this billboard plant so it can receive a material, so it can be something other than gray. At the moment, you can switch it to be more white based on your visual settings in your view. But also, if you want to set it over to realistic, that's where it's going to replace in the RPC. Now, I'm not going to do it today because that's going to take about 2 minutes for my computer to load, especially with Zoom running and everything. But I did include that photo of it in my slides. So the next thing, we've placed things along. Oh yeah, clone and mimic. So if you want to copy one of these in here, definitely you're going to want to use the clone plant tool instead of the Revit copy. And that's just to get some of the data, the extra data that we put into it. So if I click this plant, it just gives me that plant and I pop it in here and there it is, hitting escape. And if I select this plant, one thing that I didn't show you before, if we look over here in the properties of the plant, the tree that I selected, it's going to fill in all of that information. So like in here, you can see all of that field 1, field 2, and that cost for that rainbow eucalyptus has all been filled in these parameters that we've added based on our shared parameters. And if you are if you're noticing, you can't click in here and edit it. That's because we are locking the edits to these over here in the plant manager under that edit. And that's just so that it correctly applies any changes back into the plant data, so that if you import this in a future project, then you get all of that information again, right? If you were to just change it here in that model, it's not actually going to correspond over here into the data. And the next thing, you might want to switch some plants around. So we've got this mimic plant tool. I can grab this plant and I can grab this plant and it's going to change it into that plant. And again, add all the right parameters into here so that it's eventually going to correspond for our labels and our schedule. There's a few more things with placing though that we can still cover. We've got a tool, fill with plants. So I can go down here. You can see I started to do it over here. I can go fill with plants. I'm going to select a family first. So it's saying pick a LandFX family instance. So I'm going to do that. And now it's saying pick a floor. Pick that one. This will improve, but right now you've got the capability to just type in try and say okay. And that's just going to fill it in the best it can at triangular spacing. And these are all individual families that you can then also like delete or nudge as you want to. And you can start calling them out. The last one I wanted to show you was ground cover. So I placed a ground cover up here. You can see it, right? So it's a plant with a spacing that has this area. So it has figured out for the label that it has that many plants in it. So if I go over to ground covers, let's grab that same one. Actually, I could probably, I'm just going to grab it from here. There we go. You can see the information about it. And here's a little preview of something we're going to turn on a bit later. This one has color assigned to it. But if I edit that one, you can see it has a spacing of 35 inches on this plant. So I'm going to grab that one. I'm going to place it. And I'm going to place it over here on this floor. There we go. Ground cover is placed. Say okay. So it actually swapped out that whole, I got to escape out of the ground cover placing tool. It swapped out that whole floor type with a custom floor type set to, right now we have it set to a 18-inch or 450 millimeter depth plant bed type with materials. So you can go in here now and you can kind of customize this if you want to, but mostly it needed to make the floor type in order to apply the hatch. And of course it applied all the right parameters as well. So that's how you place a ground cover. Let's look at labeling though, because now we placed a lot of plants. We got to start labeling things. So we have a lot of label tools over here. We'll look at group label first. So this one is just kind of your general one. So if I grab this floor and square around it, I can place in that label. And then the cool thing I love about Revit is how easy it is to align these labels just by default using the basic Revit stuff. So that one's figured out at a natural spacing calculation, by the way, not triangular or rectangular. It's a bit more accurate. Natural spacing calculation. This area is going to take 10 fescue in there based on that spacing. So I can go through here and we can grab these plants, and I can go group label and grab this one and square over all of them and place that label down. And we'll grab these three, label, grab it, square over all of it. Actually, in this one, I'm going to escape. Yes. I'm going to show you connecting lines. So I can select this one, and then this one, and then this one, and then escape and place down the label, and I've got a connecting line label. Isn't that cool? Now you can edit any of these labels by going back to group label, and instead of selecting a plant, you would select a label, and you can edit what these labels are counting. So that's one tool. But once you are done labeling everything, you're probably good to go, right? Not quite yet. We have verify labels. So I can run verify labels, and it's going to do all the checking for me. So you might even remember back to when you had to like highlight all the different species and manually count them up on a piece of paper. Well, it's now telling me I screwed up and I forgot to label some things. Oops. So I'm going to go over here. Obviously forgot to label those. So let's get cracking. Let's fix up all these labels super quick. Just imagine how much, let's see. Oops, I was on connecting line label. So I wanted to do a group label, sorry. There we go. Just imagine how easy any of these plants that are highlighted would have been to miss in your labeling. And you would have sent in that plan and gotten a red line back saying you didn't label something. And now your client sees that and they're like, do you even know what you're doing? Well, now you got something to help you out with fixing all of that. So here I've got, and you can see the highlights are going away as I fix these. So here I missed this one. So let's use that trick with the label and grabbing this label and then just redefining. It doesn't matter that I'm selecting everything else. It knows which one based on what it remembered it was labeling before. It updated that from 5 to 6. Great, I think that's all of them. Yeah, let's double check with verify labels. And that should tell us that, oh, I have a hatch that I forgot to label. That's right, this one is also highlighted in cyan. Let's grab that one. Okay. So if you are also trying to figure out what's going on here, what you've labeled with everything, there we go, they're all correctly labeled. We also have some additional tools in here for you to be able to use, like highlight. So I can use highlight. I can use it to select a label, and it's going to highlight in red all the plants that are labeled with that. I can use highlight, and I can select a plant, and it's going to highlight all of those plants in my plan. So I like using that tool to help figure out how I'm going to group my labels. But we also have the highlight tool here in the plant manager. So you can select a species in here and highlight it. But you probably might have noticed, I'm just going to do highlight, and that's going to turn off the highlights, and then I'll escape out of it. You might have noticed we have placed and unplaced. So I can organize these lists of plants by what's placed. So I can see what I've added to the list but haven't placed yet. So really handy tool, just a little companion. Of course, we've labeled everything, we got to schedule it. Well, luckily we have a button. So schedule is up here. It's also down here, but that's just going to create some schedule views with everything already in them. Now, the default right now is a bit more simplified than what you're seeing that I've set up. So what I've done is I've gone in here to the properties of the schedule and start started messing around with the fields, the filters, and the sorting and grouping. So if I edit that, you can see I'm just going to quickly go through here so you can come back to the recording and take note of how I've set this up so that you can set it up the exact same way. Okay. Uh, but I do have it on the list to make this the new default that you then go and set up differently depending on how you want. We're kind of getting on time. There's so much I wanted to show you guys, but let's show color render. So if I go over here, oh no, I should place these schedules on a sheet. That's what I should do. So if I go over here to the planting plan, if you never place a schedule on a sheet in Revit, it's super easy. I absolutely love it. We just grab that plant schedule and we drag it over and we place it down. So let's move it. There we go. Just like that. And right now the ground cover schedule is separate, but we do have it on the list. Oops, I didn't want to go to there. I wanted to drag it on. We do have it on the list to combine it at least in 2023 on, because Revit 2023 and above, or well, that's all. It in 2023, it started allowing schedules like this with floors and families to be combined. So that's why they're separate right now. It didn't before 2023. Okay, let's go to color, planting plan color. I showed that off at the beginning. Let's turn it all on. So I just go to color render and I say on, and that's going to pop everything on. So all of these families are preloaded with solid fills, and basically what color render is doing all the manual steps for you to turn that color on and make it transparent, and also do it in a way where if I go back to my planting plan, that view, the color is not turned on, including for the ground covers. So over here in the color plan, you can see the color turned on for the ground covers too, but this is all the same file, just different views. So that's really, really awesome. Going to save you a lot of time. And right now, if you want to change any of these colors, you will need to select the plant, right click, and start editing the family and going through the families to select that color fill and change the color, but it's going to save you a lot more time than you trying to do it manually, and we do have it on the list to eventually make that a little easier. Okay, that's a lot of tools, and we have a lot coming, so I did want to pop up just our slide on our planned future development before we dive into questions. So select adjacent plants. Actually, right after I throw this down, I can just show you this. This one's almost ready. I just need to make a button for it. Basically, we did that copy plants along a line and fill with plants. Well, now we have select adjacent plants, so it's really easy to grab all of those and delete them if you need to just replace them again. And we want to eventually get to everything in here. We're being super ambitious. Hopefully we get down to at least here by the end by ASLA of this year. But that's pretty ambitious. We're very ambitious people. But this is kind of what's on our radar mostly. We do have some other little ideas, but this list is fluid and you guys can affect it by, if you tell us what you really, really want and you really need, we kind of take all of those suggestions and combine them and figure out what the most people want. And then we prioritize that. Kind of also juxtaposing it with like what's also easy to do. That one might get done first. So my big thing about any wish list item is if you can do it manually in Revit right now, we can usually automate that to be faster for you with less errors. Just tell us how you do it manually, save us that time of researching it, and we can get it actually implemented a lot faster for you. So keep that in mind. Let's jump over to questions though. I saw a lot popping in. Jer, you have been a trooper. You've been answering like all of them.
I'm trying. I swear I'm saying the wrong thing on every one too. I don't know. Yeah, like you have here, Lumion. Got a question on Lumion. I think it's generally on our radar, but it's worth noting that method of of manually assigning species by species to each node file is frankly cumbersome.
Yeah.
And so I just don't see a reason to really prioritize that. We definitely Twinmotion and Inkscape are much higher priorities, and so maybe Lumion will probably push out to kind of next year.
But we also
Um,
do have that tool in SketchUp. So we have this up here. Like I said before, if you guys had Planting FX for Revit, you have it for SketchUp too. So you can export this plan over to our SketchUp Pro plugin, and we do have an export to Lumion nodes tool over there. And it pops you out SketchUp files with all simple nodes at elevation if you have the terrain in there, and you can just import them species by species and assign. It's so much faster than trying to manually get them into Lumion yourself. So use that workaround for now.
exactly. And a couple people asking, of course, about site features like hardscape paving, site amenities. Um, we might be bringing our paving capability later this year. But that one likely could push to next year. But pavers we could bring. Site amenities is going to be a little farther out, if not even much farther out. That's a lot involved to make those Revit family symbols for all the site amenities in our database. Tens of thousands of models.
Mhm.
Um, and then had someone asking about how does the install go with the shared parameter file?
Right, you're going to want to go over to what's it, manage, and under here you see share parameters. I'm going to cancel. And then you just click browse and you find this folder right here. It's this same folder on every single installation, every computer. And you go there and you find this text file and you click open. And that's it. That's how you do it. Super easy.
Gotcha. And I got a couple people wanting to be able to assign a family symbol to a ground cover and have it, automatically fill that floor with that
Right.
with it. And that's, definitely on we have the fill with plants. I mean, so you can do it, but as for kind of toggling back and forth between a floor and family symbols, just not sure how we would kind of work that in.
Yeah, because it would need to, if you expand the floor, it would automatically populate more families at the array. So that one's tougher.
Agreed. Yeah, I think, realistically, it's, it's if what you want is the individual ones, and you got to add it as a shrub, and you got fill with plants, and there you go.
Yeah.
But we'll see. Couple people wanting custom family symbols. That what was that, maybe Nick, because we're still adjusting our process, and we have a team creating these. It's extremely involved. It's not even something we really feel comfortable. We could even generate documentation saying how to make your own custom ones. I mean, because we're constantly adjusting it. We still have some issues with Inkscape that we're dealing with. So am I right? Maybe kind of later this year or next year, we're hoping to have some sort of documentation for custom family symbols. But in the meantime, tell us what you're after, because it is an involved process to create these family symbols. And we just it just seems silly to us that we've got a team of people over there making them, a very complex process. Rather than saying, here you go, knock yourself out, make your own. Why not just let us know kind of what sort of graphical style you're after, and we can kind of add it to our list, and we'd make
Mhm.
them for you.
Absolutely. And like I said, once you import all of these, you do have that. If we go to my family folder over here, we have all of these in here. So as long as you make a copy of one of these RFA files and then also create equivalents of these two JPEG files for the 2D and the 3D view, they will populate in one of these folders that you create. Right now, you can't make custom folders, so you will have to put it in one of these folders, but you can make your own and they'll sort themselves alphabetically by the file name. So you could put yours at the front of the list if you really wanted to. You just need to go in here and explore how it's set up and edit the nested families appropriately for your different information. I did see a question about root balls, and we are exploring the best way to do that. We have thought about putting it inside each of these families, but there's just so many variations of root ball size and shape that we're starting to think it might be better if we can we're thinking of ways that we could place it as a separate family that is linked to the tree. So if you move the tree, it moves the root ball too. And setting that up, of course, with kind of the design levels or views or view graphics so that it has different levels of information depending on if you're coarse, medium, and fine, and that sort of thing. That's our plan on that. But if you have an example family with root balls, send it our way so that we can make sure that how
Hmm.
you're doing it influences how we end up doing it, so that it kind of coincides with what you already want.
Yeah, but I think what we have, kind of in production is going to allow users to. That's where you could certainly make your own root balls in Revit, because that's a lot easier for us to just tack on underneath the plant. So that will allow more customization on the user end, but also they're really pretty simplistic shapes. So
Mhm.
we're going to pretty much have them covered. Um, this is interesting one. So, regarding that sort of pop to surface, Stuart had mentioned if they have a sloped surface, he says oftentimes they have to move their symbols up off the ground so that the symbol shows correctly. And he was wondering if that's a problem with our 2D symbols.
Oh yeah, so we've actually done the 2D symbols. You can see that they don't get cut off by the terrain at all. So we've popped the 2D symbols off the ground so that they don't get cut off. And I believe the palm trees are a little higher too. The shrubs are just a little bit high and the trees are a lot higher.
Yeah. And another one on slopes is, how do you place ground covers on non-flat topo? They're just floors. You just got to slope the floor. So you
You gotta
use
slope the floor.
yeah.
There's definitely some plugins out there that I encourage you to explore to help you with placing floors more effectively, especially on terrain. Um, those ones are going to help you set it up, whereas our plugin is helping you to then place all the parameters and get it very quickly. Like just imagine the speed at which I created this species here and assigned a family to it and just placed it. To create a whole new species like that in the other manual workflows that have been out there for a while is just so much work each and every time you want to do a new species. So we've just opened up the door for you to be able to plug and play any species with any family symbol that you have. That's what we decided to do.
Yeah. And Steve kind of asks about kind of the future of a lot of things, but like what's going on with Civil 3D? Will there be a Revit effects, kind of like there's an FX CAD? The short answer there is no. For Civil 3D, the short answer there is I certainly can't speak to Autodesk. I have not necessarily seen a lot of heavy development with the Civil 3D engine over the last decade plus from them. So I'm not really sure which direction they're going with, really, kind of frankly, anything. I don't know if their plan is to bring the civil capability into Revit. But like I said, I don't see them bringing the Revit capability into Civil 3D. So yeah, can't really speak for them. I'm not really sure, but so the at least the planting effects license can be used fluidly across Revit and Civil 3D and AutoCAD, all on the same machine with a single license. So that's the part that we bring in.
Yep, and I think there was another question about do I need to get Revit, and if yes, what version? And you need to purchase Revit from Autodesk. It's a subscription, and you need the full version, not LT. LT does not allow plugins like ours. So if you get the subscription, you'll always have the latest version of Revit. So that's the one you want.
And then Spencer wants to see Phil with plants one more time real quick.
Okay,
Me
cool.
too.
I like
That's a good
showing
one.
it. Well,
It's a good
there's
one. And he
uh,
wonders if it's coming for on the CAD side. And one of the reasons we were able to get it engineered here is because, it's a very different programming system. And, we had the capability here. We don't have the capability on the CAD side, but now that we've got it engineered here, we're considering, seeing what we can add. But this also addresses that question of, can I have a floor switch back and forth between that and those? Well, you can see this is not perfect, and also, how would that impact the schedule? So, the switching back and forth is going to, at least for now, be a little bit of a bridge too far, but we're going to continue to develop that kind of fill, to certainly be able to work with them, so you don't even have to do the floor object.
I saw a question, can you import a design from regular AutoCAD? And the answer is yes. So if you go to CAD, there's the 3D connection tool in our ribbon up here. I don't have CAD open at the moment. It'll take a little bit of time to get it open. But once you have that, you can click the import tool. It just has to be set to the same project number. And of course, you'll want to make sure the two drawings are coordinated in terms of their site location as well. But once you click import over here and import it in, it will pop all of those symbols onto your Revit side, and you can start calling them out and running a schedule. Usually that's you're moving to Revit. If you're bringing the plants over to Revit, your intent is either to move to Revit and start documenting over there. Now you're changing the plan over to Revit, or you might just be doing it to coordinate with the architecture, but you're still doing all of your documentation in CAD. Those are the kind of the two scenarios for that, but it is absolutely possible. And of course, it's possible to export this design you've done in Revit back over to CAD, which a lot of people have done because the irrigation tools aren't over in Revit at the moment. And we're still working on how to do that. Obviously, a lot of people are still going to be using the irrigation tools over on the CAD side, and our irrigation tools allow you to pick up all the plants for like areas of drip emitter, and pick up the sizes to automate how many emitters are in there. So you can bring this design, export it from here, import it over into AutoCAD to coordinate with your irrigation design.
Mhm. Yeah. We're almost there. We got another handful. I would love to get to all these questions. Only about 5 or 6 more here.
Perfect.
Uh, Trent also asked, do we still need the AWS server? Yes,
Mhm.
the Revit plugin is only cloud enabled, does require essentially a constant internet connection. Marlee asks if you can label a group of plants with connecting lines without having to click each plant. That's been one of those holy grail things that we've been wanting for quite some time. If you can, it's a fun one to look into yourself. If you ever are interested, there's a mathematicians have it. What's the shortest possible path among a disparate group in a
Yeah, like
confined area? I mean, that's an incredible amount to engineer for one very, very odd little feature to then result in the line crosses itself somewhere. And to the
mhm.
human eye, with a billion years of evolution, you can immediately see how to do it better. And, the thousands of lines of code that we wrote, still screws up. But, as AI routines come available, and maybe there'll be even something we can access through Revit as they add those, who knows? But yeah, but that is a staggering amount to engineer for such a tiny little thing. Um, oh, Mark asks, I would assume, can you combine 2D and 3D views in one layout sheet?
Yeah, you should be able to. So it's just a very much more intuitive way of placing viewports. So the way that I placed this viewport is I just grabbed, oops, sorry, I grabbed this view and dragged it over like I dragged over the schedule. So it's really just easy as grabbing your 3D view and dragging that one over. Should be able to. Oh, it's probably huge. Yeah. I have not customized that in any way, but that's kind of how that works out. So obviously I would need to finesse it a little better to fit in this page, but that's all kind of basic Revit. There are some great resources for learning Revit if you're new to Revit. I like, there's a BIM landscape architecture course on LinkedIn Learning that I loved so much. I recommend it to everybody. That really helped me learn the basics of how things are done manually to be able to then continue on with it to help automate it with Jer and Kurt. But it also goes through a lot of fundamentals of this. I also like some YouTube channels out there like Balkan Architect and The Student Architect have great YouTube channels on just learning Revit basics. But if you find anything on a Revit basics YouTube or something like that course, that will really help you with these fundamentals of learning how to use Revit.
Exactly. And then, oh, I love Burton's question. One last question before is, can the line weight of the symbols be altered to improve the hierarchy between outlines and detailed
That
lines?
one's on the
Well,
list.
welcome to Revit. Yes.
Well,
Oh, line
actually,
weights.
um, that is something we are working on. It's going to be fixed in a future version. I'm already talking with the development team on how to do that. Basically, if you open up the family, this symbol does have a hierarchy in it. Uh, I just need to make sure that that hierarchy now gets translated when the family gets inserted. For some reason, I I'm not sure why Revit would not have automatically picked up those line weights in the family already in any plan, but it should have, and we're working out what's missing of why it's not doing it with our families.
Yeah, it's just
So,
coming from AutoCAD development. It's always hilarious when you come into something that something that would be simple as editing the layer in Revit is wildly complicated. Um, And anyway, but that being said, I want to kind of wrap this up. Is for looking to the future, we've got another what is about 4 Revit webinars kind of scheduled during the year. Or is it 3 or what were you thinking, Amanda?
yeah, it's going to be about 3 or 4. I know we got the FX cab one coming in on me, but I'm basically uh, focusing all my videos, as many as I can, on Revit this year. That's my
Yeah.
goal.
So do stay tuned for these upcoming webinars. We will also be attending Autodesk University in December in Las Vegas. So that's a fun chance to see it live. And also there's incredible Revit learning resources at Autodesk University. So we definitely recommend that. And hey, who doesn't love to go to Vegas in December, right? Um, but anyway, other than that, like I said, this is recorded. This is going up on the website to watch again. You have any more questions, please shoot them over to us and stay tuned and all that. And otherwise, have a great weekend, everybody. We'll see you next time.
See you guys.